want to welcome everybody to Torah is for Everyone. And tonight, Brian, what's the portion tonight?
Grab or something.
It's Reeh,
Oh,
which means see. You know, it's interesting that the more that I'm learning to keep God's principles, to obey them, the more I'm seeing how true they are. I was sick since last Monday, and I almost canceled for tonight because I was just so exhausted, and I didn't realize how much stress I was under because I had to handle something that years ago my rabbi would have handled, and I honestly didn't feel ready for it. I didn't know if I was capable of it, and suddenly it occurred to me that that's what was going on. And I know one of the things that the Torah says is, don't be afraid. God will walk through these things with you. And then I started to think, I'm ready. I can do this. I've had enough experience. And it was like in that flash of a moment, this exhaustion that I was feeling just lifted from me. It was absolutely amazing. What's amazing to me is how much stress affects us and how true God is. He says, do not fear, I will be with you. Walk with me, I will walk through these things with you. And that's a lot of what this portion Reeh is about. So I'm very excited to read it together with you. Let me share the screen and let's get to it. And look how it starts. Reeh, which means see. So God is saying, see, I set before you a blessing and a curse. It goes like blessing if you obey the commandments of your God, Yud He Vav He, that I command you this day, and curse if you do not obey the commandments of your God, but turn away from the path that I command you today, this day, to follow other gods whom you have not known. See, the word for known is yadat. It's in meaning that you've experienced, you've had personal experience with these gods. Remember, he's speaking to the second generation. All those had died in the desert, who lived in Egypt. This generation did not. The only two who are left were Joshua and Caleb. When your God brings you into the land that you are about to enter and possess, you shall pronounce the blessing at Mount Gerizim and the curse at Mount Ebal. If you look at those two mountains today, the blessing, Mount Gerizim is green and Mount Ebal is barren. I have no idea why, but obviously there's something a little more sod, mystical about this.
That's I never knew that.
Yeah.
So do you know the real? Are they still not called that anymore? Are they?
They are. They're still called.
They're still called that.
Yeah, and if you go look it up, you'll see. You'll see pictures of them.
That's amazing.
Yeah, one is literally blessed, and God says when we're blessed, we're like a river, like a tree that's planted by the water, whose roots is nourished by a stream. And here the curses are on Mount Ebal. I don't know why. Both are on the other side of the Jordan, beyond the west road, that is in the land of the Canaanites, who dwell in the Arava, the desert near Gilgal, by the terebinths, the oaks of Moreh. For you are about to cross the Jordan to enter and possess the land that your God, Yud He Vav He, is assigning you. So this land was already given to us. And when you have occupied it and are settled in it, take care to observe, Shema, to do. And here it says, Chukim v'mishpatim. And I looked up again, Chukim. The Chukim are commandments with no known rationale and are perceived as pure manifestations of divine will. So he doesn't tell us why, we just have to keep them. And what we've learned from in the 10 Commandments, that the middle two, the Shabbat and the honor our parents, are chukim, and both are so that we can be healthy. And here, in verse, no, never mind. Let me go on. And mishpatim, here the mishpatim means, mishpat means judgments, ordinances, or legal rulings, and they cover the last 5, how we are to treat our neighbor, the last 5 commandments. So these are the chukim and mishpatim that you must carefully observe in the land that Yud-He Vav-He, God of your ancestors, is giving you to possess as long as you live on earth. You must destroy all the sites at which the nations you are to dispossess worship their gods, whether on lofty mountains or high hills or on hills or under any luxuriant tree. Tear down their altars, smash their pillars, put their sacred posts to the fire, cut down the images of their gods, obliterating their name from that site. Do not worship your God in like manner, but look only to the place that your God will choose amidst all your tribes as habitation to establish his divine name there. So basically, he's telling us that there are going to be, when you enter the land, there's going to be a lot of sites that we must tear down. Can you think of any sites in Israel today that are like that, you guys?
It's
Anybody?
not, I can't think of a site. I can think of certain lifestyle things that are happening, are prevalent there.
But believe it or not, more than the lifestyles, which you're absolutely right about. But here it says, at one of these, believe it or not, this temple has symbolic and interrelational significance because the lotus is often associated with a Hindu goddess Lakshmi. Can you think of a temple in Israel?
So you're saying that
this temple is in Israel today. People visit it from all over the world.
the Baha'i temple?
Yes, it's the Baha'i temple in Haifa, and it's associated with the Hindu goddess Lakshmi.
Wow.
Do you think God is pleased with that?
No.
But
you're saying, are
these
there
sites,
Jewish people who go? You mean a lot of Jewish people go there too?
all I know is that our God said, it doesn't matter who visits them. He says, the land belongs to me. And these whatever sites are there must be taken out of his land. His land is holy, separated for him. So these sites, there are so many monuments to foreign gods in Israel. And one day I think they'll all be destroyed. Today it would be a monumental disaster to destroy them. But honestly, and it's not my judgment, it's just what God is saying. We are not to have these on our land. And he told us, tear down these altars, smash their pillars, get rid of the sacred posts. But some of the more modern day gods among our people are things like ourself. How many people are worshipped as gods today? Government leaders who set themselves up as mini gods, not unlike Pharaoh. Money, the golden calf. Money is a big god on earth. Sex is a god. Anything that where we say, I'd be happy if I could just have this instead of God. Science, religion, family, different substances, our comfort, beauty, education, all these things have become modern day gods in our lives. And it's not that we can't have these things, but when they overtake us and that's all we want, that's all our focus is on them instead of our God and his principles, that's when we get into trouble. But we are to look only to the place that God will choose amidst all your tribes as his habitation, to establish his divine name there. there you are to go. Today, we don't have a temple. We don't have a place in Israel. To me, the whole of the nation is like that. And there we are to bring our burnt offerings. Well, we don't bring offerings anymore, but we ourselves are to offer ourselves up to our God. And to bring, it says here, bring your tithes and your offerings to the community, which is why we tithe in our community. Your free will offerings, the firstlings of whatever you earn, you bring. Look what it says here. Together with your household, all your family, you shall feast there before your God, happy in all the undertakings in which your God, Yud He Vav He, has blessed you. God is calling us to be happy, to live with joy, to rejoice. And
That's
sometimes,
amazing. But
yeah,
that's along with the commands, he's actually commanding us to be happy.
exactly.
He's given us a beautiful earth.
And he's saying, if you're obedient, you'll have every reason in the world to be happy.
Right.
And look what
right.
it says next. You shall not behave as we all behave here now, each of us as we please. Remember what it says in Judges? Everyone does what is right in his own eyes. He's telling us there are boundaries. You can't do whatever you please. I remember Mary, when we were talking about the Satanic Bible, how
Yeah.
one of the things it says, remember?
Um,
Do as thou wilt.
right.
Do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But God's freedom requires responsibility, whereas the world's freedom is libertine, doing whatever we want. Because you've not yet come to the allotted haven that your God is giving you. He forms a haven for us. Israel was to be a haven for all the nations. And we, in our own homes, can create a haven of peace and shalom where we can recharge our batteries. Our community is a place we go every Shabbat as a haven to recharge our batteries for the rest of the week. The Torah is our haven. When you cross the Jordan and settle in the land that your God, Yud He Vav He, is allotting to you, and God grants you safety from all your enemies around you, and you live in security. Look what he's promising us. That you must bring everything that I command you to the place where your God, Yud He Vav He, will choose to establish his divine name, and all your offerings you bring there. And you shall rejoice before your God with your sons and your daughters and your male and your female servants, along with the Levite in your settlements. Remember, we have to take care of the Levite, for he has no territorial allotment among you. Take care not to sacrifice your burnt offerings in any place you like. In other words, don't make your own little altars like we see all over the place. Little altars in restaurants, little altars in people's homes, all over the place. No, there's only one place that God will choose. He will choose. And there you will bring your offerings. And there you will observe all that I command you. But whenever you desire, whenever you want, you can go and eat meat in any of your settlements, according to the blessing that your God has granted you. In other words, eat to your fill. Be happy. Rejoice. This is to all the vegans, the impure and pure, the tahor and the tameh. Tameh means those who are not worthy to go before the throne of God. And the pure, those who are admissible, those who are of pure heart. Both of them can eat of it. They can eat of the gazelle and the deer. These are animals that are considered clean to offer. But you must not partake of the blood. You shall pour it out on the ground like water. Every single pagan ritual that they had left in Egypt and are still going on today in rituals all over the world, pagan rituals, they do something with blood. He says, don't eat blood. Blood was part of the most pagan rituals, and God was taking us away from them, from their gods and their sadistic rituals. It says in the Encyclopedia Britannica, basic to both animal and human sacrifice is the recognition of blood as the sacred life force in man and beast. Through the sacrifice, through the return of the sacred life revealed in the victim, their gods live, and therefore man and nature lives. But we are not to partake of the blood because God was pulling us away from the deities and wanting us to to know that He is the one who gives us life. You may not partake in your settlements of the tithes of your new grain or wine or oil, or the first fruits of your herd and your flock, or any of your free will offerings that you vow, or your contributions. These you must consume before your God in the place that your God will choose. You, your sons and your daughters, your male and female slaves, the family of the Levites, and be happy before your God in all your undertakings. I can think back of the times in our community before we were just an online community, when our rabbi was here, when we had hundreds of people pass through and come into our congregation, how we had festivals and we were rejoicing in these festivals and lots of food and dancing and worshiping God. Be sure not to neglect the family of the Levite as long as you live in the land. They're the ones who are the intermediaries between us and God. When God enlarges your territory as promised, and you say, I want to eat some meat, for you have the urge to eat meat, you may eat meat whenever you wish. If the place where God has chosen to establish His divine name is too far from you, you can slaughter any of the cattle or sheep that God gives you, as I have instructed you, and you may eat to your heart's content in all your settlements. Eat it, however, as the gazelle and the deer are eaten. The impure, the tameh, may eat it altogether with the tahor, the pure in heart. But make sure that you do not partake of the blood. Do not be pagan. Don't have to go after the deities. For blood, God made the blood to be our life. The blood courses through our veins. It carries everything we need throughout our veins. And we must not consume the life with the flesh. The pagans did. You must not partake of it. You must pour it out on the ground like water. You must not partake of it, in order that it may go well with you and with your descendants to come, for you will be doing what is right in the sight of the Lord. Now today, we're never really sure about the meat that we get. And so the best thing that we can do is to salt our meat, let it soak, and let all the blood come out of it, in my understanding. But such sacred and votive donations as you may have taken by you to the site that you will choose, you shall offer burnt offerings, both flesh and blood, on the altar of your God, and of other sacrifices the blood shall be poured out on the altar, and you shall eat the flesh. Be careful to heed all these commandments that I command upon you today, so it will go well with you. The only reasons that He's giving us these boundaries is so that it will go well with us. He's not doing it to be a harsh God, do what I tell you. He's like a loving parent, like we want to do the best thing for our children. It will go well with you and with your descendants after you forever, for you will be doing what is good and what is right in the sight of your God, not in our own eyes, but in His eyes. And when your God cuts down before you the nations that you are about to enter, remember, He is cutting them down. He is going to destroy our enemies. And you have dispossessed them and settled in their land. Beware of being lured into their ways after they have been wiped out before you. Don't ask about their gods, saying, how did those nations worship their gods? I'd like to follow those practices also. Do not behave that way toward your God, for they perform for their gods every abhorrent act that God detests. They even offer up their sons and daughters in the fire to their gods. How can we relate to that today? To me, one of the ways is we allow our children to do whatever they want, and they get into trouble. We offer up our sons to the God of comfort, our daughters to God of comfort when we abort them. And I'm sure that we could think of many more if we just stop to think about it. Be careful to observe only what I command you. And this is really important. The only commandments that we had to this point, remember, we had come 40 years in the desert, and Moses had written down all the things that God was giving him, that God had given him to write down. But what we had written in stone were the 10 commandments. And here he's saying, do not add nor take away from them. And then he's expounding. If there appears among you a prophet or a dream diviner, someone who has dreams, or who gives you a sign, a portent. That's why we love to go to astrologers and read our charts and read the rune stones and all these things. We go to people who are channeling. We go to seances. We always want to know. We go to Nostradamus. We go to all these prophets saying, and they say, if these people say, let us follow and worship another God whom you have not known, even if the sign or wonder named to you comes true, because some of those things are true. You have your cards read, you have your palm read, you have your tea leaves read, or your coffee grinds read. Sometimes these things come true. But he says, don't listen to the words of that prophet or that dream diviner. For God is testing you to see whether you really love him with all your heart and with all your soul. And the only way for us to know the difference between what they're saying and what God is saying is by knowing his Torah, backwards and forwards, by heart, learning it, reading it. Every week we read it. It is your God, Yud, He, Vav, He, alone whom you should follow, whom you should honor, revere, whose commandments you shall observe, whose orders you shall heed, whom you should worship, and to whom you should hold fast. As for that prophet or dream diviner, such a one shall be put to death for having urged disloyalty to your God. Today, obviously, we're not going to put him to death, but there are circumstances that happen that do put them to death. Who freed you from the land of Egypt, who redeemed you from the house of bondage, to make you stray from your path that the Lord your God commanded you to follow. Thus you will sweep out evil from your midst. If your brother, your own mother's son, or your son or daughter, or the wife of your bosom, or even your closest friend, entices you in secret, saying, come, let us worship other gods, whom neither you nor your ancestors have known. And I know because I did that. When I was following other gods, I asked my friends, my parents, I wanted everybody to come with me. And that's how my life just fell apart. From among the gods of the people around you, either near you or distant, anywhere from one end of the earth to the other, do not ascend or give heed to any of them. Show no pity or compassion, and don't hide the matter, but take that person's life. Again, we can't take that life today, but let me tell you, my life was almost taken by God himself. But thank God he had mercy on me. Let your hand be the first to put that person to death. At that time, I would have been stoned, followed by the hand of the rest of the people. Stone that person to death for having sought to make you astray from your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. He's constantly reminding us he gave us freedom. Why would we want to return to bondage? Bondage to the deities when he sets us free. In this way, all Israel will hear and be afraid, and such evil things will not be done again in your midst. And we need to share this with our people, our own people, our people here and living in Israel. If you hear it said of one of the towns that your God is giving you to dwell in, that some rascal from among you have gone and subverted the inhabitants of their town, saying, "Come, let us worship other gods whom you have not known," go and investigate and inquire and interrogate thoroughly. If it's true and the fact is established, that abhorrent thing was perpetrated in your midst, put the inhabitants of that town to the sword and put its cattle to the sword. Doom it and all that is in it to destruction. We can't do this today. We're not like religious fanatics like the other religions have been. But we have to turn ourselves around and leave it to God to do this. He says, "Vengeance is mine." Gather all its spoil upon the open square and burn the town and all its spoil as a holocaust to your God. And it shall remain an everlasting ruin, never to be rebuilt. I think that's why God allows these holocausts that have happened throughout the history of our people, because we have done these things. Let nothing that has been doomed stick to your hand, so that God may turn from a blazing anger and show you compassion, and in compassion increase you, as promised on oath to your father. For you will be heeding your God, obeying all the divine commandments that I command you this day, doing what is right in the sight of your God. You are children of your God. This is important. I am a daughter of God, and you are sons of God. Miriam and I were daughters of God. Jerry and Baruch, you are sons of God. So when another religion comes along and says that the Son of God is equal to God, don't listen, because they're making themselves God. And here, this is something that makes them into pagans. Here's something that the pagans do. You shall not gash yourself. How many kids today gash themselves, cut themselves, and shave the front of their heads? You could see the whole front of their heads being shaved in honor of the dead. For you are a people consecrated, separated, kadosh. The word is kadosh, separated to your God, not separated to the other gods. Your God shall choose from among all the peoples on the earth to be Am Segula, a treasured people. We are a treasured people. Imagine being treasured by the God of the universe, the creator. Think of that. When he says Selah, think of that when you're feeling terrible about yourself. I am God's treasure. And then it says, don't eat anything that is abhorrent to God. These are the animals that you may eat: the ox, the sheep, the goat, the deer, the gazelle, the roebuck, the wild goat, the ibex, the antelope, the mountain sheep, and any other animal that has true hoofs, which are cleft in two, brings up the cud, such you may eat. But the following, which do not bring up the cud or have hoofs, cloven hoofs, you may not eat: the camel, the hare, the daman, for although they bring up the cud, they have no true hoofs. They are impure for you. Also the swine, for although it has true hoofs, it does not bring up the cud, is impure for you. You shall not eat of the flesh or touch their carcass. These you may eat of all that live in water. You may eat anything that has fins and scales. And then it continues to go on all the things that we may and may not eat. But I want to go to the last verse. It says here, you shall not eat anything that has died a natural death. Look what it says next. Give it to the stranger in your community to eat, or sell it to a foreigner. For you are people consecrated to your God. You shall not boil a kid in its mother's milk. These things look very strange. What is all this doing right after God makes all these rulings about what we can eat and what we can't eat? Today, we've made that more important than keeping the 10 Commandments. And God is not saying that. Because if you look at what it says here, remember at that time, he was separating us as a people. So he chose certain things by which to separate us so that we could be recognized because we were part of the nations. Israel was part of the nations, but he's forming a nation now, separating us through what we eat, how we dress, how we behave, a moral code. But here he's saying if something dies a natural death, give it to the stranger, the ger, the one who lives among us. Why? Is it okay that the ger dies? Is it okay that the ger is made sick? Or we sell it to a foreigner? Does God hate his creation? No, it was just one way to separate us at that time. And here he's telling us why. Because we are kadosh. We're being separated. Separated from what? From the people who would boil a kid in its mother's milk. And who were those? That was a pagan ritual, a fertility rite, where an animal, a little kid, would be wrenched away from the mother, boiled in its mother's milk, the milk given to a person, a woman who wanted to become fertile. This is paganism, and God was saying, do not participate in any paganism. I am giving you other things to live by. What we have done today is made the kashrut higher than any other commandments. If you want to stick to not eating those animals, we are certainly free to do that. But we are not to make it more important than his commandments. You shall set aside every year 1/10 of your yield of your sowing that is brought from the field, and consume the tithes of your new grain and wine and oil, and the first fruit of your harvest, your flock, your herds, in the presence of your God, to the place where God will choose to establish his divine name, so that you may learn to revere your God forever. Should the distance be too great for you, and you're unable to transport them because the place where your God has chosen to establish his divine name is too far, and because your God has blessed you, you can sell these things, 1/10 of everything that you've earned during the year, sell them, turn them into money, wrap up the money, take it with you to the place your God has chosen. In this case, it would be Jerusalem. Spend the money on whatever you want. Cattle, sheep, wine. You can get drunk, other intoxicant, on anything you may desire. Have a feast in the presence of your God and rejoice with your household. But don't forget the Levite in your community. That's me. Don't forget me. For we have no hereditary portion as you have. We are taken care of. And look at this, another offering. Every 3rd year, we're to bring out all the full tithe of our yield. But we're not to use it. We're to leave it in our settlements. than the Levite, who has no hereditary portion as you have. And the stranger, the orphan, and the widow in your settlement shall come and eat their fill, so that your God may bless you in all the enterprises you undertake. Look how much giving our God is teaching us. We give and we give and we give from our hearts, and we cannot give God. And again, every 7th year, you shall practice remission of debts. If someone's in debt in our community, every 7 years we forgive their debts. Imagine if all our debts were forgiven every 7 years. And this shall be the nature of the remission. All creditors shall remit the due that they claim from their fellow Israelites. They shall not do the same. They shall not claim this from their fellows or kin. The remission proclaimed is of God. Now, what is done? I don't remember what it says done. You may hold back from doing this to the foreigner, but you must remit whatever is due from your kin. It's like the family. God is creating a family unit. If you lend to your children, to your sister, your brother, don't hold it against them. Give to them freely. If they don't charge them interest, don't allow them in the 7th year to have everything back. But somebody who's outside the family, you can charge interest to them. You're not responsible for them. You're responsible for your own. Remember, there shall be no needy among you, since your God will bless you in the land that your God is giving you as a heritage. If only you heed your God and take care to keep all this Torah that I command you this day, your God will bless you as promised. You will extend loans to many nations, but require none yourself. You will dominate many nations, but they will dominate you. Is that where we are today in Israel? Not yet.
No, that's for sure.
That's for sure, but we will be one day. If, however, there is a needy person among you, remember, when there is a needy person among us, and we practice this in our community, one of your kin in any of your settlements in the land that your God is giving, do not harden your heart and shut your hand against your needy kin, even your relatives. Rather, you must open your hand and lend whatever is sufficient to meet their need. Beware lest you harbor this base thought. The 7th year, the year of remission, is approaching, so that you're mean and give nothing to your needy kin, who will cry out against the Lord against you, and you will incur guilt. Give readily. Open your hand. In the Torah, the evil eye is compared to someone who's stingy. The open hand is compared to someone who has a good eye. Give readily and have no regrets when you do. For in return, your God will bless you in all your efforts and in all your undertakings. And that's hard. Sometimes it's really hard to give, to know to whom to give. It's really difficult, but we need to pray and learn to be wise. For there will never cease to be needy in your land, which is why I command you, open your hand to the poor and needy in your land. If a fellow Hebrew man or woman is sold to you, he shall serve you 6 years. And in the 7th year, set him free. And when he is free, remember, don't let him go empty-handed. Furnish him out of the flock, threshing floor and vat with which God has blessed you. Bear in mind that you were slaves in the land of Egypt, and your God redeemed you. He saved you. Therefore, I command you this day. Now, there was one verse where it says saved. The word for saved you is Moshiach. There's a difference between Moshiach, who is a savior, and Mashiach, which is anointed. We believe in God as our savior. Moshiach, he is our savior. There is no other, only God. Mashiach is an anointed one. That could be even our tent was anointed. The king was anointed. The priests were anointed. So it's really important to understand that concept of Moshiach. But should he say to you, this is the slave who had sold himself because he was in too much debt to his fellow Israelite. But if he loves being there and he says, I don't want to leave you because he loves you in your household and is happy with you, take an awl and put it through his ear in the door, and he shall become your slave in perpetuity. Do the same with your female slave. In other words, by doing that, he's releasing all his rights of freedom, which is his choice. But whether you do either set one free, do not feel aggrieved, do not feel sad. For in the 6 years you've been given double the service of a hired worker. Moreover, your God will bless you in all you do. You shall consecrate to your God all the first fruits of your males that are born in your herd and your flock. You must not work your firstling ox or shear your firstling sheep. So don't put the ox in his first year or the sheep in his first year to work. You and your household shall eat it annually before your God in the place that you will choose. We can offer, it means we take the best of our flock, we thank God, and we offer it to God. But if it has a defect, if it's lame or blind, any serious defect, do not offer it to your God. I mean, it's like if you go to someone's house and you're invited for a lavish dinner and you go to your fridge, you don't plan ahead what you're going to bring them. You don't make a beautiful cake or buy them flowers. You go and you look at the back of your fridge and you see, oh, I've had this here for a week. I'm going to bring it to them. It's practically rotting. If you wouldn't bring that to a friend, why would you bring an animal with defect to your God? How is that honoring him? And you're to eat these in your settlements. The impure among you, no less than the pure, just like the gazelle and the deer. Only you must not partake of its blood. You shall pour it out on the ground like water. And now we're going to the month of Aviv, which is the spring, our new year in the Torah, which is when we offer a sacrifice of Pesach to our God. For it was then on the night of Aviv that your God freed you from Egypt. He's always, remember, over and over and over again, he's going to repeat this to remind us we were slaves in Egypt. This is the pinnacle for us. This is the formula for us to remember of how to behave. We were to slaughter the Pesach for your God when the flock are herd in the place where the Lord will choose to establish his name. Do not eat anything leavened with it, which represents pride. The only thing he tells us to do not eat leaven. For 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, our bread of affliction. This is the bread that humbled us. For you departed from the land of Egypt hurriedly, so that you may remember the day of your departure from the land as long as you live. For 7 days no leaven shall be found with you in all your territory. None of the flesh of what you slaughter on the evening, the first day shall be left until morning. You are not permitted to slaughter the Pesach in any of the settlements that your God is giving you, but you must do it at the place where he will choose to establish his divine name. There alone shall you slaughter the Pesach in the evening at sunset, the time of day when you departed from Egypt. Cook it and eat it at the place that God will choose, and in the morning you may start back on your journey home. After eating unleavened bread 6 days, you shall hold a solemn gathering. Now, we don't do this anymore. it was just that one time, but we do celebrate in memory. And we do it in our homes as a family. And we hold after eating the unleavened bread for 6 days, we hold a solemn assembly. The seventh day of Pesach is another solemn assembly. In it you shall do no work. Remember that seventh day, the first day, and the seventh day, no work. Count off 7 weeks. That's when we go to Shavuot. When the sickle is put to the standing grain, you shall observe Shavuot for your God, offering another contribution. We think of the tithing, but this is another contribution. Every Shavuot, ask God, what extra tithing can I give according to how my God has blessed me? And how do we do that? We rejoice before our God with our sons and our daughters, our male and female servants, our Levites in our community, and the stranger who's with us, the ger, the orphan, the widow who's in our midst, at the place where our God will choose to establish his name. And again, he's reminding us, bear in mind you were slaves in Egypt. Take care to observe these chukim, these ordinances that we may not understand. And then he's talking about hold the feast of Sukkot for 7 days. This is the next set of feasts. Rejoice, again, rejoice in your festival with your children, your sons, your daughters, your male, your female. The stranger, the ger, invite them. All these holidays are for them as well. They don't have separate holidays. They don't have a separate God. They weren't given Christmas or Easter. They were given Pesach. They were given Sukkot and Shavuot. Who? The stranger, the ger, the orphan, the widow in our communities. You shall hold a festival for your God for 7 days, wherever in the place God will choose. For your God will bless all your crops and all your undertakings, and you shall have nothing but joy. These holidays were not meant to be a burden on us, where we were to drive ourselves absolutely crazy, like on Pesach. He says the only thing you're to do is don't eat yeast. We make ourselves mashiga, crazy with all these extra rules and regulations, instead of having nothing but joy. 3 times a year. That's why he said in Isaiah, I loathe your feasts. I loathe your Rosh Chodesh, what we have done to them. Because this is not what he's asking us. And 3 times a year, these are the 3 pilgrim festivals, the feast of Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. All your males shall appear before your God in the place that God will choose. They shall not appear empty-handed, but each with its own gift, according to the blessing that your God has bestowed upon you. Over and over and over, he says, if you keep these things, you will be blessed and you will have joy. That's an order. We are to have joy. Nu, what do you think?
Quite beautiful.
It is absolutely beautiful.
I mean, if you really read it, when I first saw that, like the fact that, like, how can you be ordered to be happy or to have joy? It's really it changes your whole way of looking at what it means to have a creator.
Exactly.
It's not to be serious and cross yourself 100 times or whatever. When people say, "Oh, I'm not religious," meaning they don't believe in God, it's like God is something it's for people who are just strict people and have to follow rules. It's such a different paradigm that this God was given this life was given not only as a gift. There's joy in it, but I guess You know, when you're damaged or so far away, because most people are, including myself, we just don't know what that means, because everything we do in our lives has been in a type of, often been even maybe in with schooling that's been strict. Like our whole paradigm for living is not that for the most part.
But the more we walk with God, the more we are observant of his rules and regulations, the more we learn to trust him. And when we start to be afraid, stressed, the more we realize that in the moment of fear and stress, God is saying, do not fear. And we bring and we examine. He says, search me, O God, know my heart. So we look at the things that we're afraid of. We talk to our friends of like mind. And we find a way, because God reveals it to us. You know, he wants us to know him more than we want to know him. So when we go to him, when we ask him to search our hearts, he always answers us. And then all of a sudden, the thing that we feared, see, he doesn't take away the things that we fear. He helps us to walk through them, to face them. And the more we face our fears, the stronger we get. The more we learn to trust God. And the more, and we live in that upward spiral. And I experience this all the time, going to places that I never would have thought I'd be able to go to. And it doesn't mean we have to be like anyone else. I don't have to compare myself to the best speaker in the world. I only have to compare myself to me. Where was I yesterday? And how am I today? What are the gifts that God has given me? Who is in my sphere of influence that I have to take care of? Who needs my help today? Can I do it? Can I handle it? Can I ask someone else in my community to help me handle it? Was is dus, Brian? You have a little flamingo and a little umbrella.
And a flamingo.
Yeah, what is that from?
They had a thing for Hawaiian something. Oh yeah, I have here. LA.
Look at that. You went to Hawaii today.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. You know, Brian, you are a walking miracle. The fact that you are in Maimonides today with all these things and what you've been through is you're a walking miracle and a testament of what God can do. If people only knew. There's so many stories. There, you know how they used to say there's a million stories in the naked city? Well, I tell you, we each have stories in our life of how God has worked miracles.
I told somebody, lady, when I say you're Jewish from your father, she's one of those Jewish from your father. Understand?
Jerry, do you have anything to add to this? What you've heard today?
I'll think of some for the future.
In the future, there'll be something else.
That's it.
He's the mayor. He's out in space. There's
Yeah.
no air where you are.
Yeah, you're in La Lune. That's why. Richard,
came on
Richard, you have something you'd like to add?
Yeah, I do. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah.
All right. I'll let you see me too.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So something you said about our being tested, not to go to, say, fortune tellers and diviners, right? Am I paraphrasing that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I've been interested in the concept of being tested. In this case, we are told that we're being tested. In other places in the Bible, the characters don't really know they're being tested by God.
Right.
I gave the example of Abraham or Avram and the Akedah,
Right.
and also of Solomon and the two women claiming a baby.
Right.
So this is interesting. Here it is explicit we're being tested. And then another issue, this is more fun, about the signs of a kosher water animal. Okay, I'm a fish which has scales and fins.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So, a rabbi I went to recently in honor of my recently deceased father, Hasidic, he told a tale. This is just corny. He said, all fish have scales and fins. Okay, so why is it that it needs to be said, written, scales and fins? And so he told this tale that it represents the Jewish people. We need scales to protect ourselves and fins to move around and to be safe. So with that, I'll just close this conversation. I will mute myself now.
Okay. I honestly, I don't know what to say about that.
Well, I did not quite understand, but that there are fish without scales and fins. Eels don't have scales and fins.
Yeah, there are plenty of fish that don't have scales and fins. Shrimp, I don't know if they're considered a fish. I don't think so, but they're considered seafood. And but basically, there's nothing wrong with not eating the things that God has said, but not Brian. I'm going to put you on mute, okay?
Okay.
But not to make that more important than God's commandments, than giving other things, giving of to the widow, the orphan, the stranger among us. You know, above all things, God wants justice. And there were two themes that stood out a little bit to me throughout this portion. One, that we rejoice with our households and with each other. So Miriam, we're going out for pizza. We're going to go and rejoice. You're all welcome to join us. And he says that, and when we're obedient, that God may bless you in all you undertake to do. So he constantly reminds us of our freedom from Egypt, out of bondage, so that we may treat others as God has treated us. He saved us. As I said before, Moshiach, not Mashiach. Moshiach is the word. From the cruelty of their gods. If you just do a little research in some of the pagan rituals that were done, such cruelty, no mercy. He's constantly warning us to stay away from them. Why would we want to return to them? And to tell you the truth, it's only from ignorance or just sheer disobedience. So let's not, when we read the Torah, let's not look at every detail of the thing, but we have to step back and see what the principle is behind what he's saying and how we can apply these to our lives. That is the best way of learning how to do what is right and good in his sight, and then we will be blessed, and then we can be happy. And that's ultimately what we would all desire. Don't we want to be happy? Don't we want to be blessed? That's all we have to do. You'd think it's a simple thing. So we have our work cut out for us in this community to really teach just the Torah, because the world doesn't want that. It wants religions, various.
But they don't have that. They're, what is happiness? There's happiness and there's true joy, which is not the same.
Yes.
So, when happiness is, you can imagine being known and having a relationship with the Creator, a compassionate Creator of the universe, and but doesn't mean always that you'll be happy. But
no, but happiness is a choice. We can go through a really difficult testing period, a time of real testing and tribulation. And our choice is to go through it with God and then choose a way to be happy from it. You know,
Yeah.
like Joseph. Joseph had a rough time in prison, let me tell you. He was forgotten about. But something in him always chose to believe, and because somehow God revealed himself to him. It can only be with God that
Yeah,
we
it's
can
only,
choose that.
yeah, right.
Brian, you raised your hand there for a minute. You wanted to say something? You're on mute. I can't hear you.
Hear me now?
I hear you now.
I still been thinking about that lady who thinks we're Jewish by her mother.
I know you're obsessed by Jewish by their mother.
And
I
told her,
understand that. But there's
some-
many other things that have to do with being Jewish. The word Yehudim means those who praise God. We could be Jewish by our mothers or Jewish by our fathers. It's one or the other. It
Yes.
should not be restricted to just one or the other.
Example of a pigeon, famous passenger pigeon, was only one left and it was female, and they couldn't find a male for it. This is what happens when you don't have no more males. You can't continue that line of creature.
Exactly. Males are very important. That's one of the problems that we have today in this feminist ruled world. You know, God is not asking for us to be ruled by female or male. He is the ruler. He is our king. He wants justice and common sense, and this is what the Torah teaches us. So
But blacks in the army.
on that note, I want to say good night to everybody. If you have nothing else to add to this drash, to this blog, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope we can take something away and to be shared with others. What we're learning here is not for us alone, but it's to be shared with those around us. And how do we share it? By our lives. Yes, Richard.
Yeah, I just want to quickly comment maybe for next week
Okay.
or Saturday. The thing you read about not adding to the law, remember that?
Adding to the Torah, yes, to the
Yeah.
commandments.
Doesn't that come up in Matthew when Yeshua confronts people and accuses them of adding to the law, the washing of the hands thing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about it Saturday.
That's a good idea. I'll look it
Okay.
up. I'll look it up because I will be speaking about, it's my turn to do the message on Shabbat, and I will be speaking about Yeshua this week.
Okay, now you've tantalized me.
Good. I
All
like
right.
that. Good.
All right. Bye.
All right.
All
God
right, bye
bless
for
you
now.
all. Jerry, do you want to read the Aaronic benediction?
I think we should.
It's a good way to end.
And the congregation says, "May it be thy will, Lord our God, and God of our fathers, that the blessing which thou hast commanded to pronounce upon the people Israel may be a perfect blessing, forever free from stumbling and iniquity. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'kedushaso shel Aaron v'tzivonu levarech es amo Yisrael be'ahavo. Yevorechecho Adonai v'yishmorecho Yoel Adonai Panav Eilecho V'chuneko Yiso Adonai Panav Eilecho V'yosem Lecho Shalom. V'samu et shemi al b'nei Yisrael v'ani arvorchem.
May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord shine his face upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon us and give us peace. So shall they put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. May God bless us. May he grant us the wisdom, the sechel, to see the things in us that pull us away from our God, whether it's food, any substance, money, whatever is keeping us away from serving our God and giving ourselves completely to him. Let us serve him with all our heart, our soul, and our might. And with that, I say good night and God bless you.
Good night
Amen.
and thank you and God bless you.
You're welcome.
God bless. May God